Hello, 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 everyone. Hello, 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 everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. It's National Science Fiction Day. We're gonna say hi to everybody. Um, Cam, you're muted. Did I do that, or did you? You muted yourself. All right. Yeah. So we're just gonna do this surprise stream. We're gonna talk a little bit about. I think we should talk about Isaac Asimov. He is the godfather of science fiction. Um, the day is based on his birthday, so I thought we'd talk about him. How does that sound, Cam? Is that good with you?
Great.
Yeah, I mean, we could talk about other things too if anybody else wants to talk about other stuff. But I thought I'd talk a little bit about Isaac Asimov. So,
Well, yeah. I got
yeah,
one question though. What nation?
what nation? For
Yeah,
what national? I
it's
think it's
national. Yeah.
America.
Oh,
I think
okay.
it's America's. I mean,
Well, you might
you
you
guys
might as
in
well get
charge of
used
everything.
you might as well get used to American holidays.
That's right. You guys get in charge of everything, man. We don't. We got to follow along whatever you do. So yeah, we're stuck. Sci-fi snob. It sounds like you're in a tunnel. I'm not. I'm not in a tunnel. Does it
Yeah,
already sound that way?
you do sound a little less
Tunnely?
than ideal.
Different than usual? The
Yes,
same. All
more
right.
hollow.
Hold on. Vamp for a second.
Okay, should I be talking here to entertain our one uh, our one loyal viewer?
Any better?
And sounds about the same.
Any better? Sounds about the same.
Yeah.
This.
Hey, Weatherman, is mine sound bad or is it just
You
it's not?
sound normal to me, man.
Hmm.
I maybe it's this PC's fan is working a little bit harder than normal. I think I should replace it or something.
You know what? That's a good point. I did hear a bit of a whirring when we were coming in.
Yeah, that's probably the fan here. It usually sometimes it decides to go faster and make these noises, and sometimes it doesn't. So, all right. Anyway, so we should kill a little time before we get going. How was your holiday, Cam? You missed the show. The last show you weren't well. You were. I mean,
Well,
missed the show. How's
I caught
holiday? How was
I
your
caught the
holiday?
end of it. The holiday was well, not without controversy.
Oh
Um,
no.
yeah, but yeah, that meaning Christmas. But then I went and visited. I was on secret assignment. Is what I mean.
Yes, yes.
So, you know what? K- The, the secret assignment. Can I talk about it, or should I save it for later?
I guess so. You can talk about it since I just made that up at the time. I just came right up. I had no idea what
Yeah.
I was.
Well,
No,
unbeknownst to
that's not true.
you,
That's not
I
true.
was I was I visited one of our NASA space centers.
Seriously?
Yes,
Really?
one I hadn't been to for decades.
Really?
Yeah.
And what do you have to report back?
It was pretty cool. I wasn't sure what to expect. It was kind of impromptu. I was around and I'm like, oh, this is only like a little ways away. I'm like, well, I might as well go. Take the opportunity to go see it. Like I said, I hadn't been there for years, decades actually, and it was pretty neat. It was, and what I'm speaking of is the Huntsville, Alabama Rocket Center, which is kind of the lesser known of the major um, space centers in the U.S.
I thought that was the main part where they actually launched the real rockets, and Kennedy and Florida and California are just fake ones, right? Isn't that it?
Oh
No,
yeah, that's right. Right.
that's where the real launches happen. No, maybe I'm wrong.
Yep. Weatherman says he's been to NASA in Houston. Yeah, that was the last. I hadn't been to Houston until a couple years ago, maybe 5 years ago. I think was well, the only time I've been there. I had been to Kennedy 3 or 4 times in Florida, and Huntsville, Alabama, I had been to in, man, I don't know, 1982 or something like that, and then just a couple days ago. So it's pretty cool. They added a whole. Well, it's actually in Florida and in Alabama. They have a very similar setup for they have a Saturn V rocket that is horizontally mounted on big frames inside of a very long building. So it's again they probably use the same design for both of them. And then there's all kinds of displays and everything around the outside, so you can see a whole bunch of stuff. The one in Huntsville was a lot about von Braun, that Nazi.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because that was where he was based, I guess, for a lot of the time, where they did again, I'm not sure about all of it, but apparently this is where they did a lot of the development work for the rockets.
Wow.
So
yeah, I didn't know that.
It was a lot on that, but they had some other cool stuff too. I met a guy who worked on Skylab.
Really?
Yeah, who because they have like rocket scientists, like these guys are old. I mean, this guy's like 80 years old.
Was he just walking around, or was he part of the
No, I mean they have him come there. It's like you could ask a rocket scientist, whatever. And this guy was.
They give him a free lunch and and then he comes over and he has nothing else to do.
Right, I guess. But it was kind of cool because I'm a huge Skylab fan. It was like that was one of the coolest things. I think the International Space Station kind of sucks. Because it's international.
Like dirty foreigners.
That's right.
Getting in the way.
America, that's what I like.
America, fuck yeah.
But anyway, so I always gravitate towards the Skylab stuff, and this guy, he just happened to be there, and kind of he started chatting me up actually, and he was like, "Oh yeah, I worked on all the equipment that they had on Skylab." And he says anything basically the astronauts worked on, I helped develop. I'm like, oh, cool. That's neat.
So that Saturn V is a beast, isn't it? It's like,
yeah. And
is it still the biggest rocket, or is it? I don't know if some of Musk's stuff is bigger or the newer stuff. It was the biggest rocket forever, right? Like,
yeah, and it's even bigger than. I mean, it's taller than the new SLS system.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah. I'm not sure. The SLS might have more lift capability. But yeah, for the longest time, it was the king of heavy lift. And so when I was there, a long time ago, I think they had it laid out outside, like on its side, and then so again they had some left over, so they brought them in to various places and refurbished them and everything, and then they also added, since I was there, they had. In the past, they had a Saturn I, which is smaller. That was standing up, as if it was, going to launch or whatever, and that was pretty cool. But now they made it's not an actual Saturn V; it's a replica of it, but accurate to scale and everything. Where they also have that one standing up, so that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Let's see.
So, what was your favorite? What was the coolest thing that you saw there? The thing that all of our viewers should go, and if they go to Alabama and see it, one thing they should see for sure, or two things, whatever it is, whatever you think is it.
Well, they have the. Let's see, what was it? I think it was the Apollo. See, if I was prepared for this, I could have had photos sent to you. Maybe I'll do that. Maybe we could do that in another episode. I haven't uploaded anything, but they have. I think it was the Apollo 16 capsule there. And it's kind of mounted, in an area where you could walk all around it, and it's kind of tilted so you could look underneath it and all this stuff. That's pretty cool. They had a similar display of another one. I forget which one it was in Houston, and they just those are pretty cool photos. They had a mock-up. They had some I guess they're trainers actually. The trainer for the lunar lander was pretty cool. Much more spacious than I thought, because there's kind of the area where they stood, because it didn't have seats per se, where they were stood to pilot it, but then it's like where the hatch came down from the command module. There was a again, for spaceships, I'm saying for spaceships, it's spacious, relatively large area, in there, where you can actually kind of move around and not be cramped. Because if you look at a Gemini capsule or something, or even the command module, the Apollo, it's pretty darn
Yeah.
small.
Yeah, they're always pretty small usually. Yeah. No, I'm surprised. I figured it was all like everything's pretty small. And,
Yeah, I mean it's meaning you wouldn't. Well, if you're claustrophobic, I guess. But it's like, oh, you could actually, you could see how they could actually get into spacesuits and things in there. Whereas, again, it's like I've not been claustrophobic in the past, but it's like, today it's like I'm not as comfortable with small spaces, So
yeah.
I just look at like the Gemini capsule, which incidentally, Gemini program is the unsung hero of the space program, in my opinion. Love it. Along with Skylab. But it's like, I'm like, 2 guys are in this thing for days. It's like, or weeks in some cases. It's like, this is nuts. So I don't even know how they do it. It's like, it seems like you're just pinned in there. It's like, you can't even shift your legs around, So that seems pretty crazy, but.
Yeah, those guys are, pretty crazy.
Oh, wait, there was one other thing is they had a piece of Skylab, because Skylab fell out of the sky or whatever in 1979, I think it was. And some of it fell in Australia. And there was a piece of it there that it was behind glass. And I'm like, I remember when I was here, in the 80s or whatever, and it wasn't behind glass. It was just, sitting on something. And I remember when I was a little kid, it was like, I'm going to touch that. and so I illicitly touched a piece of Skylab, and
Yeah.
I was just cracking myself up over that because it was like, oh yeah, I put
Yeah,
this
it's
in
funny.
glass because of me.
This isn't related to space, but years ago I went to Angkor Wat in where the hell, in Southeast Asia, not beside Vietnam. The name's escaping. The country's escaping me now. Anyway, like you could crawl all over. Like we crawled all over the place, Angkor Wat, right? Crawled all over it, like the pyramids and all that kind of stuff. And now, of course, you can't get it's all everything roped off and stuff.
Yeah. Yep, we ruined everything.
Yeah, people ruined it by carving their names in it, putting gum on it. God knows what else they did, but anyway. All right, we're good. Shall we launch into our main topic?
Yeah, go for it.
All right, let's. I don't know how much you know about Issac Asimov. He's one of my. He's one of my favorite authors. He died in '92, so he hasn't, of course, written anything since then. But so he's Russian. He was okay. So the reason that this is science fiction, National Science Fiction Day, because today is Issac Asimov's birthday. So that's why. Now, it's not. We don't. Might not actually be his birthday because he was born in Russia in sometime between October 4th, 1919 and January 2nd, 1920. So he just decided, later in life, he's like, okay, well, I'm going to take January 2nd as my birthday because he didn't know exactly when he was born. So, Russia was a little bit, at the time in October 1919, there was, some problems in Russia at the time. Mm-hmm. So,
yeah. Yeah, what was that problem? What was that problem called?
Something with communism, I think.
Oh, right, communism.
And also, the Russians went by a different calendar too. They were always.
Oh yeah, were they on the Gregorian or Julian calendar?
Yeah, so I'm always I'm a bit of a, I like history. So one of my areas that I was focused on was, the Russian Revolution, Russian communism, that and the American Revolution and the early American years are kind of my areas of more interest. And it always, threw me when I'm reading through, and they're always like, "Oh, this happened in October, but it was actually November because, in this date, the dates never matched with our dates and stuff. So you're it's like 3 weeks off. So it's just kind of like every time you're going, okay, this was happening and this was affected by, but that's 3 weeks. No, it's the same time, so it's a little confusing at times. But anyway, yeah. So Issac Asimov, everyone should know him. He was one of the big 3 of science fiction. Now, I was just looking on Wikipedia, and it says here that they say the big 3 is, the big 3, big 3 are kind of the ABCs: Asimov, Bradbury, and Clark. Now, here in this listing here, It's Wikipedia. How much can you trust it? It has Asimov, Heinlein, and Clark. And admittedly, Ray Bradbury was earlier, but Bradbury didn't really write a lot. So compared to Asimov, Heinlein, and Clark, especially Asimov and Heinlein. But anyway, so he is the one of the big three. Anyway, let's say that, and wrote or edited about like 500 different books in his lifetime. And a lot of the things that he wrote tons of science fiction, of course, but he did write a bunch of science books and various books about whatever caught his fancy. He'd write about history, whatever. He wrote a number of history books about let's see here. I'm just gonna some of the Greeks, A Great Adventure in 1965 wrote that. The Roman Republic, the Roman Empire, Egyptians, the Near East, 10,000 Years of History, Asimov's Chronology of World Events. So he wrote all kinds of stuff, and of course, and a bunch of science, like pure science books, biology, that kind of thing as well. So yeah, but let's talk about. I think primarily we should talk about science fiction. I think you'd agree, Cam. That's probably what people have come to see, come to hear.
I don't know. Why don't you ask? Just ask Weatherman.
I'm gonna guess that.
Oh, and Steve.
Yeah, and Steve's here. Oh, yeah, it says it's got 3 in the chat. So I don't know, Steven Weatherman, or maybe there's somebody hiding, or maybe that's Cam trying to pump up the numbers a little bit, something like that. But anyway, so yeah, so let's talk about Asimov. So his most famous, sort of the things that he's most well known for, he actually coined the word robotics. He was the first one to use that word, and it's kind of basically everyone uses it now. No one knows where it came from or anything, but he's the guy who started using that word first. Also, psychohistory, which is, of course, I mean, it's not. That's a word that just really refers to his his books, the book that the Galactic, the Foundation series that he wrote. But yeah, writing robotics is something that everybody knows about. His biggest thing, I think, would he started out the early years of science fiction. The 50s. A lot of it was short stories, and so there was a number of science fiction like pulp type magazines that would come out. His was called. He had one that was called well, I guess it was I don't know, I can't remember. He wrote one, but mainly a lot of his stuff would be published in these science fiction books, like Astounding Science Fiction, which would just be like a weekly magazine that would come, or sorry, not weekly, but monthly magazine, which would have a bunch of short stories in it, and he would contribute, and all kinds of various other authors would of course contribute. So probably, well, what would you say his best known work would be, Cam? You had
well, probably the most well known today would probably be iRobot, but
you
maybe
think so?
or the Foundation series.
Yeah, I would say Foundation.
Well, I was gonna say iRobot because the movie a few years ago.
Yeah, the will, but that wasn't really pushed so much about him, like yeah, maybe. But I think he's probably best known would be Foundation, where he started out with, that's where psychohistory comes from, which is basically his own thing that he made up, which is a mix of history, sociology, and like mathematical statistics, that kind of stuff. So if you read Foundation, I've got a copy here. You'll see that it is divided up into like the chapters that it's divided up into are all basically they're short stories, and they were originally published in these like Astounding Science Fiction, these various magazines here. So here I got. So let me turn on my. I don't know if you'll be able to see this. I I'll turn on my camera here. And I'll show you my copy. All right, here we go. Oh, let's go. Big screen here.
Did Asimov do I Am Legend?
No, no, it's I Am Robot. I Am Legend is not. Okay, so this is Asimov's. This is my copy of Foundation, 1985 or something version. It kind of came in a. I'll just came in a little. Oops. A little that. This is actually these are the books that got me into science fiction, sort of. I read a couple of. I was 15 years old when I got this, and I got it for Christmas, and I started reading it, and it was. I had read a couple of Heinlein's, like young adult series books before that, but I had really not gotten into it that much. And then I read this, and that was sort of it. I got into this, and that was it for me. Eating up science fiction after that. Yeah, so if you see here, let me get back to the table of contents here. There we go. I don't know if you can see that. That's the table of contents. I'll read it off here. There's 5 parts to it. The psychohistorians, the encyclopedists, the mayors, the traders, and the merchant princes. And each of these are a story from that he put into that were, into one of these science fiction monthly magazines. So he'd do one, and then people really like it. Oh, let's do another one. And so he sort of built that up from there. So that's how the whole Foundation series really started out. And then from there, of course, he does, he goes on to do Foundation and Empire and Second Foundation. So that Foundation is one of his main, I don't know, what do you want to call it? Universes, worlds, that sort of thing. They all follow the same thing, and they're set, in a galactic civilization that is, far, far in the future from where we are. So, since these novels are published, then a number of other novels are published. The Galactic Empire series, which I have here too as well. I'm going to show off my books here. These 3, these all happen. These ones all happen before. I'm proud of these. It took me a while to find the right copies of these, the same edition. Yeah, so these are the Galactic Empire. This is what Trantor is at its height in these novels. So they're prequels, and then they're actually, sorry, I shouldn't say they're prequels because he wrote 2 Foundation prequels, Prelude to Foundation and Forward to Foundation, and they were happening just before the Foundation series. One happens when one is about Harry Seldon, who's the main character of the Foundation, the guy who invents psychohistory. I think one is him when he's a young professor or young student, and he invents psychohistory. And I think the second one is, the build up as to how he manipulates everything to get himself and his people banished, if I remember correctly. Then there's he wrote Foundation's Edge and Foundation and Earth, and those sort of those kind of end off the series. And then there was, I didn't bring them here, and then there was there's like 3 or 4 Foundation novels which are written by other science fiction big names, like David Brin wrote one, and who else? Ben Bova wrote one. I think there's 3 or 4 of those that were written. and they're about they're in the Foundation, within that universe, and I think they were written after his death. He didn't have anything to do with them. So yeah. And the second major Cam, the second major series that Asimov wrote.
I don't know.
Well, you already said it. It's
I wrote
the robots, right? You already said it.
Yeah.
So the Caves of Steel, the Naked Sun, Robots of Dawn. Do I have them here? Did I pull them out? No, I didn't pull them out. I left them on my shelf. So Caves of Steel, the Naked Sun, Robots of Dawn, and then they were kind of they're set in it's sort of a near future. Like if you've seen the movie I, Robot, which just starts in 2035 or something, I think I can't remember. They're set in a near future where the robots, and the big thing about
that might be pretty close.
The big thing about the robot novels is his three laws, right? His positronic brain, which is a mimic of the human brain, and the three laws, right, which are inviolate, right? So those are, pretty much anyone in science fiction who knows anything about science fiction, if you say, hey, what are the three laws? They'll kind of know, what they are. So that's a pretty big, contribution to science fiction. And these novels are they're written as a science fiction crime / mystery novel. I mean, not really a mystery, but there'll be a robot is involved in some sort of crime, and then the characters, what's her name, Susan. I forget the character's last name, but she'll be sent. She's the robot psychologist. She'll be sent to figure out why this robot is doing some weird thing that it's doing, why it did whatever, and inevitably the story is that the robot is doing what it's supposed to be doing, and it either didn't commit the crime, or there's some sort of problem which forces it to act the way it is. And one of the things about Asimov's stories was that for his robot stories, this is what kind of bothered me about I, Robot when it was written, when I saw the movie, because the robot kills the guy, right? He killed, and the robots can't kill, they can't break their laws, and so they kind of broke with Asimov's vision of the story, because what he always does is no, the robot is always right, it's always following its programming, it's just that we don't understand the interaction or something like that. Weatherman says you didn't get into them, couldn't get into them. I still enjoy them. I still think they're good. Asimov is it's fun. It's kind of interesting because if anybody knows here that they did, was it Apple TV or was it Prime? I can't remember. They did a Foundation TV show. I think they did 1 or 2 seasons of that. Do you remember that?
Now that you mention it, I remember. I didn't see it though.
I didn't see it either. It didn't get good reviews at the beginning, but then afterwards people were saying that wasn't that bad. But I don't know. I haven't seen it. But a part of the problem with Asimov's books, and he said, my books will never be, no one will ever want to put my book into a movie. And if you read the Foundation, they're actually it's it's not easy to adapt, because what happens is that there'll be two characters will sit down at a table at the beginning of the chapter or the part or whatever it is. They'll sit down and they'll be talking about events that happened. So it's really 2 people sitting down talking about, oh, then this happened and this happened and then this happened, and it kind of starts a story like that. But you can adapt that. I'm sure a good screenwriter could solve that problem. But So yeah, there's two. So those are his two main series. And just Cam, if you want to jump in at any time, do you want to add something?
No, I'm
Don't
just here to keep you company. You know,
don't hesitate to jump in.
I haven't read that much Asimov.
Oh no, okay. I read a lot of his stuff, but it was a very long time ago. It was like I said, it was like like Weatherman when I was a teenager, and a little bit beyond that. But yeah, so okay. Well, I will tell you a couple of secrets about about Asimov. So these two series seem separate, right? Like it makes sense. The foundation is set, whatever thousands of years in the future. We don't know how far in the future with a giant galactic civilization. And the robot novels initially start in an Earth just somewhat more advanced than our present day because they have we've gone into the solar system on Mars and Mercury and stuff, but not much farther than that, right? But in one of his novels, he puts the two together. So he links the robot series and his foundation series. Now, I don't want to tell you how. I don't want to tell you, where. I think it's partially in is it in Foundation and Earth, but maybe in Robots and Empire. Um, but I don't want to give you any more. I want to convince Weatherman to to maybe uh, to maybe go for maybe read them and figure this out. Um, yeah, so he links the two. Now, let's talk a little bit about some other like standalone novels that he did. Fantastic Voyage, Destination Brain is a pretty big one that people have heard about. Sorry, Fantastic. He does Fantastic Voyage, then Fantastic Voyage 2, Destination Brain, both of those. One that I really enjoyed, which was called Nightfall, which is which was a short story that he wrote, and then he did more of it into a full novel. So Nightfall is kind of an interesting story because what happens is that it's so it takes place in a planet that is closer to the galactic center than we are. So the star is they're closer to the galactic center, but they're also there. I think it's a 2 or 3 sun system, so there's always the sun going on. So the story starts out where these archaeologists are digging and they're finding past evidence of an advanced civilization, and they keep digging and they're finding more and more going back things. Oh, there's another advanced civilization which was about advanced as ours, and somehow it got destroyed. And then we dig down, look another example, that kind of thing, right? So what the story is that they every 1,000 years or whatever the distance is, I can't remember if it was 1,000 or 30,000 years. Basically, the planet goes crazy and falls into back to the Stone Age because they have an eclipse of all their suns, and so they are able to see the stars. They don't know anything about the stars. They've never seen the stars because they can't. The night sky is not like our. They don't really ever have night the way we do, so they can never see the stars, and so they go crazy, and everybody riots or whatever. So that's the kind of what the story is. So it's kind of interesting. I gave that one away, but it's kind of interesting idea for a story. I want to mention the Gods Themselves is another big one. I have to reread that one. It won a Nebula Award, a Hugo Award. Asimov has tons of Nebula, Hugo and Nebula Awards. Back when they used to give them out for people who actually did good writing, and not because you follow whatever the political views of the current now is. I have to reread that one because I don't remember much about it. But the one I want to mention is The End of Eternity. And this one is interesting because it's quite a different setup than anything. What it does is it talks about this guy who works for this group called Eternity, and what they do is they have this timeline they can travel back and forth in time, and so they travel back and forth in time, and um, they trade with other times of Earth for certain things, but yet they can't go anything past 100,000 years from where they presently are, and they're like, well, why is that? That's weird. Something's wrong, and how come this is happening? This group is kind of secretive, and not everyone knows that they do this, but this is what they do. So, but he uses that. So it's a very interesting story line in itself. But he uses that storyline to tie into the robot and the Foundation universes as well. And I don't want to tell any more than that because I don't want to give it away. But it's kind of interesting that this story is like kind of sets the stage for everything else. Yeah,
Cool.
it's pretty cool. And that one's written in '55, so that's kind of like he set it up beforehand, so to speak. But everything else is some of it's the same, but some of it's much later. But yeah, it's kind of interesting that he's done that. He sort of fit all of his things together. So yeah.
Speaking on that, this is a little bit of a sidebar. I saw a video a while back about how all of Stephen King's stuff all links together, and I don't like Stephen King, but I do like when there are links like that in stories, even if they're kind of, just a little bit of something here or there. You mentioned about when we talked about the Moon is a Harsh Mistress.
Yeah.
That there's that actually, which I wasn't aware of, that links to what was the other? Oh, it was the Lazarus.
Lazarus Long stories. Yeah.
Yeah.
But he kind of puts that in. Yeah, that's a good example. But he wrote the story, and then afterwards he's like, like the computer Mike disappears. So at some point, in the future, Heinlein's like, oh, maybe I should. Oh, I'm writing these maybe the time travel guys come and they take Mike because Mike is the first sentient computer. Heinlein never gets into how Mike became sentient. Like he's just, whatever. Bicentennial Man, iRobot. Like I'm trying to, they're not listing those. iRobot is, I think it's a collection of his short stories. I probably have it here. I gotta get up to look at it. It's a collection of robot short stories, I think. And I'm not sure Bicentennial Man either. Maybe that's also a short story collection. Oh yeah, okay. Here it starts listed here. Yeah, iRobot. Fix up collection of science fiction short stories. Yeah, and then I don't know about Bicentennial Man. I think I've read that itself. I think that's here. Let's got it here. Collection of science fiction anthology written and edited by Asimov. I think it's 11 stories. Yeah. So I think that's a collection of short stories. And again, remember when Asimov wrote initially, like in the 50s, like I said, he had to keep it short because it was going into these small collections. And they're like, oh, you only have this many words, right? 2,000 or whatever, 2,000,
Right.
2,000 words. So they would, he would purposely write. I mean, it's nice to write these. That's why a lot of science fiction is short story focused at the time, because people aren't reading large novels. They're, science fiction is new. They're getting little snippets of it. They can read it in, like what's his name, Dickens, right? When Dickens wrote A Tale of Two Cities, right? Do you know anything about?
No.
No. Okay. Well, Dickens wrote A Tale of Two Cities, and it's kind of wordy, but they published it in the newspaper, right? And he got paid per word, like a cent per word, so he makes it extra wordy. But they, in order to encourage you to buy the newspaper, every week or every month or whatever, there'd be another, chapter of this story. So that's how it was sort of presented to people, and that's how it was a lot in the 50s as well, which is why, you have Foundation, which is really, 5 parts of a story pushed together. at the end. So yeah.
Hey, another sidebar. Sorry, speaking of robots, I saw a couple weeks ago. There was an animated movie called The Wild Robot, which was
Yeah, my kids saw that.
okay, which is based on a book. Pretty, well, it is sci-fi, I guess, by our criteria, but not bad.
I haven't seen it yet. I'll see it when it comes. Out to, my kids liked it, so
Yeah,
yeah.
it's meant to be a younger audience movie, I think, but
I wanted to mention, Stephen King. I think Stephen King is overrated. I agree. I think he's a little overrated, and I don't like horror. I hate horror, but I agree with Steve. The Stand. Really enjoy The Stand, but to me, The Stand is science fiction is my personal favorite, but a secondary um, to that would be I wouldn't I don't know, Cam, how you would describe this. I wouldn't say it was a cult, but um, stories of good and evil where demons and angels are in conflict, or
mhm.
humans are used between those. I'm not sure what you would call that style of. It's not
It's
really a
it's
cult,
kind of
but
like an apocalyptic
yeah,
dystopian kind of thing. Well, not
yeah,
dystopian, real. I mean, I guess there's not really much of a society. I guess there is some, but
yeah. It's not as popular, but yeah, so the stand would fit into that, some sort of battle between good and evil, where sometimes, where angels and demons might be directly involved or not. It doesn't, that's not necessary for me. I do kind of like it. I do kind of prefer it when they are involved, something somehow. So yeah, whatever they be called, it's kind of a small genre you don't see very often. It's only a couple of films that are, that you can put out in that thing. But the whole, when the stakes are like, good and evil, that kind of thing, they pump up the stakes like that. I find those are my second favorite, genre books. So yeah, so I enjoyed The Stand. Even the movie, the original movie, which like was a movie of the week or something that came out in the 80s,
yeah,
late 80s.
it was a
That was not
miniseries.
bad.
The miniseries.
Miniseries.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's not a bad movie. I think they redo it or something. I don't think I've seen the
yeah, there
redo.
was something more recent. I forget where it was though.
Yeah, and I do have a copy of The Stand. I bought a copy of it because I liked it that much. I thought it was pretty good. But yeah, I tried to read. We're talking off topic. Talking about Stephen King. I tried to read the Tower series. Um, have you
Yeah, man.
tried?
I
You
did
tried?
actually. Yeah, couldn't get into it.
I think I got through book one and part of book two. I even went to the graphic novel to try to, but it was just such a slow slog, eh? And it's supposed to be his magnum opus or whatever. It's supposed to be his big story, but it was just, and the movie was not, yeah.
Uh, you know,
I
maybe his best work is was it Eyes of the Dragon, which is a very much a departure uh, from his regular kind of work, um,
mhm.
and it's basically a fantasy novel, but the flag,
It's
the
yeah,
antagonist is in there, which
it's
might be his
flags.
origin story. I'm not sure.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the Towers one, that one is kind of a bit of a fantasy too, a little bit, kind
Yeah.
of, maybe not. Yeah, so I got started with Stephen King. A friend of mine, when I was in high school, was always trying to get me to read stuff, and he put me on. He gave me Skeleton Crew, which is the one with at the time it's got a monkey on it playing,
Hmm.
which is why you see the monkey in like Toy Story 3 and stuff. The monkey with the cymbals, I would smash them together.
Mhm.
Um, evil looking monkey. And that one had the movie. They eventually made it into a movie, The Mist, I think it was called,
Oh
and
yeah.
that's the one where the people are they're caught in they're stuck in a department store or sorry, a grocery
Convenience
store or
store.
something,
Yeah.
and these mist comes out, and people are like, oh, well, it looks kind of. Should we go out? And people go out, and they don't come back, and it's actually some local big research facility has opened a door into another dimension or something, and all these monsters have come out. I mean, that was a pretty good story, but I just never got into the whole Christine, right? Like a car that is possessed, or Cujo, a dog that won't die. Like I never really liked any of that stuff. So I generally don't like horror anyway, so it's too scary.
Yeah.
But yeah. So what else we have got? Okay, so yeah, there's a lot of there's a ton. He's got a ton of short story collections that Asimov has that Weatherman was mentioning. Bicentennial Man, Complete Robot. There's all kinds of various stuff that he's got. You can pick up any of those and get an idea. Because, like I said, they primarily wrote short story, like things that would be short stories, because they wanted to get them into the magazines, science fiction magazines. That's how you got published. No real publisher would publish a science fiction novel. What the heck? That's garbage.
Sure.
Pet Cemetery. Yeah, so that's what they did, and they.
Well, I don't know if it's a good time to talk about it, but I think I might have mentioned at one point that I'm a big fan of the sci-fi radio show X minus one, or Dimension X was the kind of the pre-show to X minus one, and that's again short format. So pretty much all of those were adapted from Amazing Stories or all whatever the different sci-fi magazines were.
Mm-hmm. That's is that a YouTube show, or is that?
No, that was a 1950s radio show.
Oh, was it? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
My daughter is trying to get me into this.
Oh, you're talking about Night Vale.
Night Vale, that's the one she's trying. I've mentioned it. I guess I mentioned it before. She was like,
yeah.
She likes it. She's always trying to get me into listen. I haven't been listening. It sounds like I respect those guys. They sound like they put a lot of effort into their show. I respect that.
Yeah, they do, and it's been running for a long time too.
Yeah.
And I listened to it for some time. I started at the beginning of it and listened to quite a bit of it, and I was very amused by it for a while, and then I lost track of it. Let me say, it wasn't like, oh, I hate this or anything, but
you just lost.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of funny to go into, there's the radio announcer, he's talking, and there's these weird things happening in the town, and he's sort of some weird things he's always focused on. Other weird things are like, hey, that's really weird, and but he's like treats them like it's like normal.
Well, yeah. The problem is, I don't know. For me, it's like a bit is really good at some point, and then it's like, well, we got to keep stretching it, and it's like, now it's kind of gotten to the point where it's like, just.
What are you talking about? No, bits are always good, and you can never go too far.
Wrong.
No, bits. You gotta believe that bits are good, and people will always like them.
No.
No.
Listen to me. Okay, this is how a joke is really funny or a bit is really good. Is it doesn't get old.
That's right. And they never get old.
And you don't need to stretch them to be good. If it's always, this is very rare also, but if you find one of those, you don't need to keep on searching or spiraling out into something else. That's one of the things. I don't know. Maybe it's just a personality quirk of me, but like something. It's like. For games or for toy lines or fiction or whatever, it's like it hits a sweet spot. It's like the first thing comes out, it's like, wow, that's awesome, I really want more of that, and then it kind of goes to the next thing. It's like, wow, that's also really awesome, and then it starts to kind of drift, and it's like, it kind of peaks at the beginning. It's like it rockets up quickly and kind of continues over the hump, and then it kind of drifts downwards. That's my experience with things, or maybe that's just my attention span. I don't know. So if you could find something that really doesn't plateau or doesn't peak and come off the other side, that's something to treasure.
Well, I have to believe that bits will never get old.
You're making no sense. I
have to believe that.
Okay. Whatever. Let's sleep at night, man.
Okay, so before we go on to, well, we want to about 10 minutes left. Do we want to talk about something else? I will mention that just going back to Asimov, he wrote the Lucky Star series. I haven't read any of these, and as Paul French there. He wrote, under the name Paul French. So he wrote a bunch of those. There's all kinds of these Lucky Star novels. I think that's the character from the book. They're like they're kind of juvenile science fiction. Yeah. So you might want to check those out. He's got 2, 4, 6 of those. They're more for kids. He also wrote with his wife Janet Norby. There's a whole ton of these Norby written in the early 80s to the sort of the early 90s. I never read any of them. I think they were more for kids too, because Norby sounds like a little cutesy. Norby the robot, Norby the mixed up robot, that kind of stuff. So those are his other main science fiction things that he wrote, along with he's got a bunch of mysteries. The Black Widower series, a fictional men-only dining club. He created for 66 mystery stories starting in the 70s. So I've never read any of them myself either. They're, again, mysteries, not really science fiction. But yeah. So that's So that's pretty much all I wanted to cover on Asimov. Is there any other anybody else have any science fiction authors they want to mention on this science fiction day? We only got 10 minutes left. But yeah.
We got any obscure ones that we haven't mentioned before?
Well, I mean, I've got obscure ones, but I've mentioned them. Like, John Dalmas is kind of obscure. Philip Jose Farmer isn't really obscure. I think everybody should read him. They don't really read him. He's a little bit weird with the sexual stuff. Gets into that a little bit. But I think I've mentioned all those guys before. We could talk about if you want to talk about if anyone has any questions about Asimov. I don't think so. I've covered most of. He's what else do you want to know about? He's Jewish. He was Jewish growing up, but he became an atheist when he became an adult. He didn't really follow his religion. He was a big sexual harasser.
Really?
Yeah. They said that in the 70s and 70s they had the science fiction meetups, and he would often go around and pinch girls' asses and stuff, grab them and that kind of stuff. And he's like, yeah, women are beautiful and they should be touched. And he kind of helped contribute to this feeling that women weren't welcome within the science fiction community, because he would be going around doing this all the time. And people, some I'm sure some women were all like, oh, because he was famous and everything. But people who were there say, maybe some liked it, but there was enough that didn't like it. But he never apologized. He was just like, whatever.
Scumbag.
So he was kind of good.
Okay. This gets kind of the dark side of things, but go ahead.
Yeah, I don't really want to. I mean, I don't want to push that too much, but it's in his bio, right?
We talked about Heinlein. He's a open pervert.
Right? Yeah. I mean, he didn't sexually. I don't think Heinlein sexually harassed.
Yeah, I don't know if he did any criminal actions.
He was just he was a swinger before it was cool, right? Like,
I guess
that's his thing.
But then I don't know if this is true or not, so disclaimer. But there were some ugly rumors about Arthur C. Clarke too.
Yeah,
really ugly stuff, and I have no idea if that's at all.
I haven't heard any of those, but I didn't. I never looked deeply, but
yeah. So
they're all perverts.
Maybe. Well, what about Bradbury? Any dirt on Bradbury?
I don't know. Let's go to the chat and talk about. Okay, so Larry Niven first. Well, what do you want to talk about, Larry Niven? I mean, also a great writer. Best known for the Ringworld series. all a million of those. Got some other books. The Moat in God's Eye is good. There's 2 books in that series, and supposedly it's being made into some sort of media. I don't know if it's a movie or a TV show, but that revolves around us meeting these alien creatures have you know, 6 fingers on one hand and 5 on the other, and they're like very fast breeding, and they live shorter lives, and their lives are very cheap for them. They die a lot and just they keep breeding, and yeah, it's a kind of an interesting, but they're like threat to us because they might outbreed us, and they're very yeah. So that's supposedly I heard that yeah they could easily make Moat and God's Eye into a movie, and I heard that they were making that into a movie. Or some sort of TV show, something. I haven't heard anything else about that. Yeah, so Niven is best known for that. There are 2 books that I think Larry Niven is still alive, but I don't think he's writing anymore. He's like really old. I wanted to talk to him and ask him. He wrote 2 books. The first one's called The Integral Trees, and the second one is called The Smoke Ring. And it was set up for a 3rd book, but he never wrote it. I've never found it. So I would love to ask him, hey, are you gonna? I mean, I don't think he's writing anymore. I think he's still alive, I believe, but he's just can't write anymore. I think, but I could be wrong. I don't know. Yeah. Let's see, Niven. We mentioned the main. Niven has some other good stuff too. Did he write Footfall? I think he wrote Footfall, which is a alien invasion of Earth in the 70s, or maybe that was Jerry Purnell. I don't. I've read a lot of Purnell stuff. I mainly get him because him and Niven wrote a lot of stuff together. So you'll see lots of Jerry Purnell written by Jerry Purnell and Larry Niven. So yeah, yeah. Fred Saberhagen. I don't know his stuff as much, but I got a couple of his books. He writes the Berserker series, which I think I mentioned on the show, on the lounge, a couple months back. Yeah, so he's the kind of the giant machines that come out. The Berserkers are giant machines that go around wiping out all life everywhere. The classic. Hateful machine, mean machine. Yeah. Okay. What else? Yeah, Fred Saberhagen. He's pretty good. I like the stuff. I never got into him as much as I did into Asimov, Heinlein, Farmer, Bryn, Niven, any of those other guys. But yeah, I don't know if I've read anything by Purnell that he just wrote. I mean, I probably did, but I can't remember offhand. Paul Anderson. Yeah, I got a couple of his books. It's escaping me right now what he wrote. Let's go to the Google. Yeah, like I said, I think I've read most of the stuff I've read of his has been what he's written with Larry Niven, and there's a lot of stuff that he's written with Niven. Yeah, I'm just looking through. I don't think I've read any of his stuff that he just wrote himself. Oh, that's kind of. Should read some of that. Oh, it's a lot though. Yeah. Ensign Flandry. Yeah, I think I see that here. The Psychotechnic League, Tomorrow's Children, Polzotechnic League. Yeah, I haven't read any of this. Terran Empire. That's the one you're referring to. The Terran Empire. Ensign Flandry, I think you're talking about. Yeah. Agent of the Terran Empire. Yeah. Time Patrol. Long Night. I'm just looking through. I didn't see that one, but yeah, that sounds right. There was mini-series of Moat and God's Eyes in the works, but nothing official. Yeah, that's what I heard. I heard something about that. But again, Nothing more than that. Yeah. All right. Is that any? That's it. Anybody else want to? We could talk more about some of these guys. I talked about one of the first things I did on my videos I have on the channel was about the big three. Yeah, Frederick Pohl, of course. Yeah, also a pretty well known guy. Yeah. All right. I think we've done an hour. I think we're gonna. The idea was just, hey, happy science fiction day. Do a little quick little talk. And Cam was around, so he jumped in. I didn't tell him about it until like a little bit before. Hey, you want to come in?
Yeah,
So,
I woke up from a nap
I woke. You woke up from an. I woke you up from, or you woke up?
No. I just happened to see the alert come by on the YouTube thing.
Yeah. So if it wasn't, he was having a nap. So if it wasn't for, a little Bing or whatever, that you wouldn't even have known. I'd be talking to myself. All right, that's it. Anything else you wanted to mention, Ken?
No,
Green Girl's in the chat. Welcome, Green Girl.
Oh, Green Girl.
Steve, Weatherman, Michael.
Yeah,
Green
thanks.
Girl.
Thanks for everybody who shows up for this this channel.
Surprise.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just got a book called Pride and Prejudice in Space for Christmas. Let's see if it's any good.
Oh.
It might not be bad. Who knows?
Yep. Have a good night, Weatherman.
Yeah.
And
everyone. So that's it for us. Cam, what do we got to mention? Are we good for this Sunday? Get the show this Sunday. We're doing
Sci-Fi Tools.
Sci-Fi Tools. We gotta do a little bit of research. Sci-Fi Tools, and these are not necessarily real tools, but it's tools in sci-fi media, right? And so I think someone mentioned the sonic screwdriver, and that's a classic one. So
yeah, I've
in
been
that kind of vein,
trying to think of one. Again, well, here's the thing. We could discuss this, but tool is we could take that broadly or narrowly. If it's just tool, I think it's hard to beat the sonic screwdriver because it's just literally anything they want it to do, it can do. But we'll discuss that.
Well, I guess it'll depend on how broadly we're going to take it, is depending on how many we get, right?
Mm-hmm.
They'll open it. Oh, taking an hour out of this, we got to open it up a little bit. And after that, we're going to go with the next show after that is going to be the Babylon 5 initial one, right?
Yep.
So Cam, we should talk. I was talking to Jason, and it seems to me that Wednesday is good for him. So I think we go Wednesday. Are you good with Wednesday?
Yeah, I guess that's as good as anything. Yeah, let's go for that.
So, and we'll probably go at the same time as our usual show, which is 10 o'clock Mountain, right? No, sorry, no. 10 o'clock.
It's 11.
I'm on Mountain Time. It's 9 o'clock Mountain, and it's 10 Central, right? You're Central.
11 o'clock Eastern.
11 o'clock Eastern, 10 Central. Jason is Central, and I'm Mountain. And you're, I think you're Central too, right? You don't want to say.
Sorry. No, it's unknown.
It's unknown. We don't want to tell what time zone you're in. People might be able to find you.
Right. Michael says Pip-Boy from Fallout. Good possibility. K9 from Doctor Who. Yeah.
As a tool.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, right. Because he's a robot dog, right?
Yep.
No, he's a little guy.
He's a robot.
K9 is a tool. Well, we don't mean tool in a rude sense, not in the vernacular, as in a useless thing, like a useless tool. Yeah. So so Babylon 5, and we're gonna start with episode 0, right?
Yeah, the Gathering.
The Gathering, which is a hour and a half movie that was, and I haven't seen it. I've got to find it and see it. Yeah, I'm gonna go see that. So I'm actually behind, even though I've seen all of the first. So I've been I'm only partway through like the second season of Babylon 5, and I've been seeing more things pop up about Babylon 5 recently, and it's been giving me it's given hints as to what happens in the future. Um, like I guess, what did I see today? Giant freaking robot. I know Jason hates them for some reason. I don't know why, but giant freaking robot has a video that came in my feed somehow. It says the 4 best battles on Babylon 5, and I'm like, I don't really think I've seen any of these battles on Babylon 5. So
Oh,
like big battles. So I'm like, okay, well there must be at least 4 battles further on in the seasons that I haven't seen. So yeah.
yeah.
So I've been. There's been a little bit of spoilers for me, but yeah. All right. I guess that's it for the show. Any last things you want to mention, Cam?
Nope. Just Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, everybody, and happy Science Fiction Day, which
Oh,
is coming to an end in a couple hours. What?
wait a
You
minute.
got something?
Green Girl just mentioned the Green Lantern ring. Count as sci-fi. Yes.
Okay, well then add it to the list.
Okay. She just beat the Sonic Screwdriver then. Dang it.
I mean, technically, most superhero stories can be pushed into that science fiction box, right?
Yeah, that's a whole show topic we should probably do sometime.
But well, I mean, we touched on it, I think, a little bit, didn't we? And,
Yeah, I think we might have, but we never did a whole. I don't think we.
no, and so, generally speaking, there. I mean, especially a lot of heroes are technically technocentric and stuff. I mean, the Green Lantern ring is magical, right? Like it's a piece of technology. So, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, I'm jumping around. It reminds me that he said P5 Battle. It reminds me that there are Babylon 5 games from back in the day that
Like
we might
video
also
games or board games.
there was a card game.
Really?
Yeah, that was like a collectible card game that was actually pretty good. I've got a bunch of it still. And then there was
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, there was a miniature. I think there was a miniature space battle game as well. I think I might have like a starter set for that. I'd have to dig into that, but I completely forgot about it. I have a ton of the Babylon 5 card game. It was a good time. Usually a lot of the related, some of those games aren't that good, but as I recall, it was actually pretty good.
Often games based on a existing IP can just be like a cash grab.
Yeah. Oh,
Two
Michael
tabletop RPGs based
that's
on
right.
Babylon 5. I didn't even know that.
Yeah, I might have that too. Boy, this is going back a while.
Well, I mean, part of what the video about the space battles mentions is that Babylon 5 is the first, space science fiction show to have big space battles. Like if you think about like Star Trek, you think about Star Trek, for example, which would be the one that you would say would be its biggest, I don't know, competitor. Like there's never really big space battles in Star Trek, right? Like
not well in
there's
TNG.
sometimes I mean, no, even the original series TNG, it's mainly two ships, look at each other, maybe they, shoot at each other a little, but not giant space battles where there's tons of explosions and that kind of thing. Other than like Wolf 359, right? Which
Yeah,
we don't really see that.
Yeah, a
right?
lot of it happens off screen. Some of the TNG did have a little bit.
Later.
I think it was season 3. Yesterday's Enterprise had a space battle with several ships at least. That was cool. And then the fourth season I think had some. So as they went on, they did have a few here and there. But you're right, it's not like constant.
It's not
space
a big,
battles.
and it's not a big thing with TNG. Like it's not. That's
Right.
not what it's about.
Now Deep Space Nine had a lot more.
Yeah, of course, Dominion War and stuff. But it's just funny that Babylon 5 is sort of the first to do this sort of thing. They seem to be focusing on that, whereby most other science fiction shows do not do that. At least TNG.
Yeah, I'm. Yes. Weatherman's mentioning some other ideas for the tools, and I think I'd like to. Well, we can all discuss it, but one of the things will be whether it's a weapon or a tool, and I think there is a dividing line there, and it will be interesting because there are definitely some that could be both. You mentioned like a vibro knife, for example. That's
I
just
would just off the top of my head, I would just say something that is primarily a weapon or made for that. I would sort of exclude that because other than there's a million science fiction, quantum torpedoes and space this and I mean, phase
I
whatever. You put a fancy sci-fi word in front of a gun or something and you call it something.
I think we should include though things that might be primarily weapons, but do have many other uses. Or have been used in
Like
other
what?
ways,
I mean,
the Star Trek phaser, for example. It has been used as a tool a number of times.
well, that's true. They're always cutting through rock with it.
Right. There's
You gotta cut
so
this rock.
there's at least a handful of uses for it. But again, that'll all be something we can
Yeah,
discuss.
I would think it's like its primary function is a weapon, so that wouldn't be. But I would be open to, like a neuralizer, for example. That's not a really weapon. Um, yeah, Death Angel Shadow, welcome. You're on your wrong. You're on your alt. Yeah, yeah. We were just ending off the show. We're trying to end it. We keep getting distracted here. But
Okay.
we were just talking about Science Fiction Day, National Science Fiction Day today. We're talking about it's after Asimov's birthday, so we talked about Isaac Asimov most of the show. A little bit about wherever else we our our thoughts took us, like a little bit into Stephen King for some reason. But next show, as you can see here, everybody's talking science fiction tools in media, not real world sci-fi tools or tools that are kind of science fiction, but like the sonic screwdriver and some of these other things that guys are mentioning. We'll have to talk about that. Yeah. All right. Last chance, Cam.
Nope,
I
that's
keep
it.
saying this.
Good
That's
night.
it. All right. Yeah, we got no outro, no nothing. This is not the Top Lofty Lounge. We're just gonna end it off there. Thanks everybody for coming out. We'll see you for our regular time on Sunday for the regular show. We're doing science fiction tools. Night, everybody.